الأشعري tells us مشينا من غزوة ذات الرقاع حتى سقطت أظافر أقدامنا. We walked back from ذات الرقاع and I was barefoot because I didn't have my shoes were ruined because of this long walk, and my toenails fell off my feet. Like it's so hot that your toenails don't work anymore, and they just fall. It's a horrible feeling. I've actually seen people like that. If you go to certain parts of the world, in the desert, you'll see. So what they had to do is they had to take a piece of their clothing, they would take a piece of their clothing, rip it, and then they would tie it around their feet, just to ease the pain of it and to make it easier for them to walk. So it was called Ghazwat Dhat al-Riqa', the battle of the riqa' of the pieces of cloth. So what happened? The Prophet ﷺ took them, he marched towards these people, 300 kilometers. He arrives there, and as he's arriving there, it is Asr time. And they're preparing for battle. Now the Muslims, up to that point, had never really, didn't know what to do when it came to praying in war. Right? How do you pray during war? It's not an easy, it's very difficult. It doesn't make any. How would you do it, right?
Half of the people fight, and then the other half.
Exactly. But they didn't know that at that time. They thought Rasulullah swore, right? Yeah, can we just maybe pray also qada later on? I'm sure many people here who are at the mall will do it, because being at the mall is worse apparently than being in war, right? Or if you're sleeping in, then you can pray Fajr maybe at 8 o'clock, or if you're working, then you can just ditch Maghrib and pray it later. During war, they thought that maybe we didn't have to pray, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down an ayah with me what to do with this.
But didn't you say early on that they used to fight while?
Yes, and I'll explain that in a second.
Aren't they technically traveling, so can they pray your qada?
Yeah, you can do it that way, but still they have to pray. Either way, they still have to pray. So the ayah came, وَإِذَا كُنْتَ فِيهِمْ فَأَقَمْتَ لَهُمُ الصَّلَاةَ فَلْتَقُمْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْهُمْ مَعَكَ. And along the ayah, it talks about praying during war. Now, I can sit down and explain to you how they did it. It may take some time. I'm not sure how much you'll benefit from it, because I don't think many of you will actually have to do it at any point in your life. Inshallah, that's not going to be a part of what you do. But what's more interesting to me is the fact that even during war, they weren't given an excuse not to pray. Even during war. You say, well, war is the worst moment, one of the worst moments of your life. If you ever, that's may Allah protect everyone here, no one has to go through it. But if you ever do, it's one of the worst moments of your life. It's very scary, you're extreme fear. It's very hard. Everyone's scared, it's a very high tension moment. And if any moment you were going to be excused from prayer, in your mind you'd be, this is the moment. This is the moment where it's okay for me not to pray immediately. And the Quran came and said, no, you're going to pray. You're going to pray. It's war, yeah. We'll tell you how. Because the first person was like, this is impossible. How do we pray during war? Don't worry. We'll tell you exactly how to do it. There's a certain system for it. Just like Muhammad was saying, the Prophet would stand, if it's Isha for example, if it's Isha to prayer, he would stand, and half of the army would stand behind him, and they would be facing towards their enemies, so they would pray towards them. And they would pray, the Prophet would pray the first 2 rak'ah, they would all follow him the first 2 rak'ah. The half that is praying behind him would pray behind him the first 2 rak'ah. The other half would be standing, guarding them. Then the Prophet would sit for the first tashahhud, and he would stay sitting, wouldn't move. And the people who were praying with him would stand up and continue the 2 rak'ahs on their own. Finish, and then go and take stand on guard, and the people who were standing on guard would come and sit behind the Prophet, who's still sitting in the first tashahhud. He's still waiting. When everyone's seated, he gets up and he continues the 2 rak'ahs. So now, after the 2 rak'ahs is finished, he's finished his 4. Now the guy is behind, how many rak'ahs have they prayed so far? 2, right? So they continue the last 2 on their own. And that way everyone prayed together, 4 rak'ahs in different timings, and only half at a time, so that there would always be enough people to guard. So this was the first time they did something called Salat al-Khawf. And this is called Salat al-Khawf. It's called the prayer of fear. If you're in a moment of fear, or so war is probably the scariest moment, then you do it in that form. Now the very interesting part of the story is that no battle actually happened. The tribes that were standing there, when they saw the Muslims actually praying in it was a very weird way of doing things, because they're not Muslims, they're not praying, so they're watching them doing that. They're like, these guys are, I don't know what they're doing, but this is freaky. I'm out. And they all run. They all ran. And before the Muslims actually, before a fight happened, these tribes fought amongst each other, and they all ran away. and the Muslims didn't have to, no bloodshed happened in this ghazwa. That was my favorite ghazwa, because no bloodshed happened at all, and they all ran. And the Prophet ﷺ decided to stay a night, just to establish some strength. And we're not afraid. If you want to come back and fight us, ahlan wa sahlan, we're still here, we'll stay and wait for you. But they had already ran away. And it was just a piece of a proof of strength that the Prophet ﷺ wanted to establish in Arabia. And they got to do Salat al-Khawf. Now what I want to bring to your attention, if they weren't allowed to postpone a prayer during war, then what are you doing telling me that you work at Walmart and your manager sometimes doesn't give you the 5 minutes to pray Maghrib? What are you telling me? What are you doing? Why are you explaining to me that I can't pray because, well, I'm the only guy standing in the meat and the dairy section and there's no one else to stand there for? You pray. When it's Dhuhr time and you're at school, you ask for a few minutes, you go pray Dhuhr, you come back to your class. It's your right and it's your duty. It's two things. It's your right in this country to do it, meaning you have a right as a Muslim to ask for time for your prayer, and it's your responsibility to do so. It's not an excuse to say that, well, I can't pray Dhuhr because I have classes, or I can't pray also because, no. You can always study, you can always pray, you can always ask for time, and you can go do it, no matter whether you're working, whether you're traveling. Very few times in life are you excused from doing a prayer. Maybe Dr. Abdul Rahman is excused if he is saving someone's life and it happens to go Maghrib until Isha. He doesn't pray and let the guy bleed out and die. He has to take care of it. But very few times in life is it okay for you to postpone a prayer. Very, very few times. And even in a situation like that, some scholars say he prays internally and then he repeats it later. Because you don't miss a prayer. So for you to come and tell me I was at school, or I had a game. Once that was, someone told me I had a game I was playing. You were playing? You didn't pray Lord because you were playing a game? And it was a football game. I know it was. You can tap out for a moment, sub out, pray, go back. Do not waste your prayers. If the story of Salat al-Ghazwa will teach you anything, it teaches us Salat al-Khawf. No battle happened. It was like a lesson from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Muslims. Because it wasn't about the battle, it was about fighting. It was about that you have to pray. Even if you're scared, even if it's war, you have to pray. The only time you're excused from praying is if your brain isn't working anymore. If you're knocked out. If your brain is not functioning, then khalas, you don't have to pray. But as long as your brain is working, even if it's just with your eyes. I was blessed when I was quite young. I think I was maybe 9 years old. To see a great man. But who knows Ahmed Didat? Ahmed Didat? Do you know how Ahmed Didat died? See, we know what he did. Does anyone know how he died? Or where he died? Anyone at all? Ahmed Didat, he had a stroke that basically paralyzed him from the eyes down. The only thing he could move was a finger and his eyeballs. Go ahead.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح
This man was bedbound for 9 years. 9 years, the last 9 years of his life. He couldn't move anything. And he was in a hospital in Riyadh. And he continued to perform da'wah for 9 years, using a system where he would look at the letter on the computer and would type. And people would send him emails with questions about Islam. And he would send back essays of answers. He would type with his eyes. And he did this for years, for 9 years after he died. After he had the stroke, until he died. People don't know that. People know the famous debates where he stood and talked, and he was very talented. They don't know what he actually did at the end. And I was a part of a conference call when we were kids in school, where we got to someone went to the hospital and he gave salam to him, and I remember seeing this man and just being told the story, and it was just and he prayed his prayers every single day. He paid 5 prayers. Not only did he pray, he continued to perform da'wah until he passed away in 96 now.
How did he type with his eyes and how did he...
So there was a little computer system where he would look at the screen, and the screen would recognize that his pupils focused on a certain letter and would tape it. You can look it up, it exists today easily, but at that time it was a big deal. And he continued to perform da'wah for 9 years like that.
How did he pray?
So how would he pray? With your mind. Allah Akbar. In your mind, you're reading Fatiha. Allahu Akbar, Subhana Rabbil Azim. You can't move your body, but you're doing the prayer. It is accepted and you have to do it like that. So there's really no excuse. When you come and give me these silly excuses that I went out today and I was at school, or I don't know what to tell you, or I had a class. You need to stand up for yourself and you need to ask for it. It's your responsibility and it's your right. It's do things and you have to go and ask for it. Don't come and tell me I'm ashamed or I'm embarrassed, or people are going to think this or say this. Doesn't matter what people think or say. You need to pray your prayers on time. Don't add them all up at the end of the day. That's not right. It's not okay. If during war you have to do salat al-khawf, then imagine any other time that is much less. The stakes are much lower. Yes.
So what did he do with his finger?
I can't remember anymore. I just remember that part. You can look it up probably in Wikipedia and read about it. Anyways, interesting. So they did that, and the four tribes, they all ran. So the Prophet ﷺ is now going to come back. So on the way back, we're going to have a few stories. A few things are going to happen on the way back that are very interesting in that 30 o'clock. So I'm telling you the first story, because I think that's all the time we'll probably have left. The first story was on the way back, alayhi salatu wasalam, they found a place that had some small trees, shade, because it was very, very hot in the sun. It was 12 o'clock noon. You don't walk in the desert at 12 o'clock noon if you want to live. If you want to live, you find shade and you'll rest for a while. So it was 12 o'clock noon, you need to stop, so they found a place where some shaded, and everyone found a tree to lay under. And the Prophet ﷺ gave the duty of standing guard for a couple of people. Okay, you guys all stand guard, make sure no one's following us, no one's wake us up if anything happens. So the Prophet ﷺ comes to a small tree, he takes off his abaya, hangs it up, he takes off his sword, he puts it on the tree, he lies under ﷺ. He would take off his shoes, put them on top of each other. You know how the Halaqa goes into another Halaqa, sometimes I've never seen how they put them together. He would do that, ﷺ, he would put them under his head and he would sleep, ﷺ. Imagine ﷺ putting his pillows in his shoes, ﷺ. Anyways, so he would do that, he would put his hand on that. And this is Bukhari and Muslim, by the way, this story. And a man, actually, who was part of those four tribes, who didn't give up, had been following the Muslims the whole time. His name is Ghawrath ibn al-Harith. And he's coming behind them. And he waited to see maybe one of the guards who wasn't doing their job properly. Because one of the guards actually tells us that I was standing there that day, and I fell asleep like 3 times. I was so tired, it was just so hot and tired. And he kept on falling asleep. And apparently as he was falling asleep every once in a while, this man made his way amongst all the trees looking for the Prophet, because everyone was snoozing, and he sees the Prophet. So he comes up, he takes the sword off the tree, takes it out of the slot, and he puts it right under the Prophet's neck right here, as he's sleeping. And he passes on it. Qum ya Muhammad, get up. Muhammad, get up. The Prophet wakes up and he finds his own sword under his neck. Qala qum, up. So the Prophet sits up. And he's sitting there with his sword stuck right here. Now I've seen an Arab bring a sword. I've actually carried one before. They're pretty heavy. They're pretty scary. When you see one, you're not sure if you want to have anything to do with it. It's actually quite an intimidating thing. To have it on your neck, scary moments. Yes?
Is it like one of those pirate ones?
I don't know. You have to ask a specialist in swords. I don't know. So he's sitting there, someone with the sword under his neck. The man looks at the Prophet and says, وَالْآنِ يَا Muhammad. And now, من ينجيك مني? Who can save you from me? You're walking around thinking that you're invincible. You're fighting Quraysh, you're taking on all these tribes, you're removing Banu Nadir. You think you're a hot shot? Who can save you from me now? You're done. I'm gonna shove this in right into your throat and end this right now. But I just wanted to ask you a question before we did it, quickly. So the Prophet ﷺ, totally calm, sitting there, he looks at him and he says, Allah. Now I don't know how or why, I really don't know why this guy took a step backwards, tripped, fell, and dropped the sword. I don't know why. I don't know whether it was the strength of the answer of the Prophet ﷺ. I don't know whether it was the determination in his eyes, ﷺ. I don't know whether it was the extreme bravery and courage that he didn't know how to deal with, just vibrating from the Prophet ﷺ. I don't know which one it was, but when the Prophet ﷺ so clearly and so confidently answered him with just one word and said, Allah, he fell back. He tripped back, he fell on it, and he dropped the sword. The Prophet ﷺ picked up the sword and he put it under the guy's neck. So the guy's laying there with the sword under his neck. And the Prophet ﷺ smiles. And man yunjika minni. Now how about you? Who will save you from me? So the man starts to beg him. Ya Muhammad, ma ahidnaka illa kariman. Nashadtuk Allah wa rahim. All the stuff that they're and say, please, you've always been known to be generous. You've always been known to be a great man. Ya Muhammad, don't kill me. So the Prophet ﷺ says, هَلَّا آمَنْتَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. How about I give you a better idea? How about you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter? Don't Muslim. فَقَالَ لَا. No, I don't want to. Very rude man. Very little etiquette at all. So I have the sword, like I can kill you. Nope, I don't want it. So the Prophet ﷺ doesn't push. فَقَالَ إِذَنْ تُعِينُنَا عَلَى حَرْبِهِمْ. Then you'll help us against those who are fighting. فَقَالَ لَا. No, I would never do that. So the Prophet ﷺ, but he's very patient. He's not the type of person who gets irritated and then out of anger will harm someone. Out of anger will do something that he will later regret. That's not him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. فَقَالَ إِذَنْ تُقْسِمْ أَلَّا تُعِينَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْنَا. Then how about you just never help anyone to harm us? How about I just take that from you? I'll take anything from you. You want to be a Muslim? Okay, you can't do that? Fine, then just help us out. No? Then just how about you don't fight us? How about you don't fight us? فَقَالَ نَعَمْ إِذَنْ. Okay, I won't fight you. So the Prophet ﷺ calls upon the Sahaba. All the Sahaba get up, what do they see? They see the Prophet ﷺ with a sword and this guy sitting. فَقَالَ أَتَدْرُونَ مَنْ هَذَا. You know what this guy is? فَقَالُوا لَا. فَقَالَ حَدِّثْهُمْ. Tell them what happened. So Ghawra turns to people and says, okay, this is what happened. I came in, I picked up the sword, I shoved it under his neck, I woke him up, I told him, who's going to save you? He said, Allah, I don't know what happened, I fell down, and now I'm in the position you see me in, and I'm swearing that I'll never ever help anyone against you again. Why? Because he wanted to teach them, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that we don't seek revenge. So he could have killed him, and executed him at that moment. But he chose not to, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because he is the most merciful of all. And he'll take anything he can from him. Even if just a promise not to harm the Muslims, that was good enough. That's the first story. I'll talk about that story a bit more, inshallah, next time. Yes? Okay, hold the question until after Salah.